Welcome to the Biz Kidz Podcast, where young entrepreneurs rise, shine, and redefine what is possible. Ready to launch your business? Well, buckle up. We're about to launch. Welcome to the Biz Kidz Podcast. I'm your host, JD Ribali, and today we have our guest with us, Santi Lozano. As we always start our program, we always like to hear your 60-second pitch of who you are and what you do. So tell us who you are and what you do.
Love that. Thanks, JD, to have me. Name is Santi. 60-second pitch. I'm just a nerd when it comes to email and a nerd when it comes to operations. So co-owner of Kaizen, full stack digital company, where really we just try to help businesses grow profitably and try to help pretty much anyone in any industry. That's kind of what we do.
Awesome. So we always like to go back in our time machine and look at your childhood. When did you get the bug to be an entrepreneur, and what was your first business?
I was exposed to it at a very young age. My dad always told us to try to grow up and not work for somebody, try to be your own boss. So he took us to a lot of networking events, or not networking events, but more like conventions. So I remember Millionaire Mind, who went to a couple of times. There was also some Tony Robbins videos that he would give me every birthday. He would give me some type of book. So I was always exposed to that like self-development look outside of what the 9-to-5, the rat race, if you would be. And that's where I kind of exposed to ClickBanks was the very first time that I got exposed to any type of entrepreneurship, or it was just how to do affiliate marketing. And that's where I kind of dabbled into like the website side of things. That was probably early middle school. And then once I got into a little bit later into middle school, I remember buying this like pack of 12 to 15 sunglasses and going to school and selling them for like $5 a piece, just any colors that people wanted. And then once I started to realize what people were buying often, then I would find those 12 to 15 packs just so I can have my inventory low, but still keep my margins pretty good. And anytime that we had, because I was part of Bandcamp, so anytime that we had those little chocolate boxes, I would just go out and try to sell them out. So it was always a little gamified thing for me of just like how quickly can I sell it in inventory, so that way I can keep costs super low but still be able to be profitable. We didn't have anything like what do you call them, like when allowances. We didn't have that in my house. So it was a lot of, if you wanted to get $20, you had to like do something extra or go out of your way, or you had to do something outside of home. So with that, it kind of just initialized a lot of my entrepreneurship, which I realized that like it wasn't difficult to make money. You just had to pull the right levers to get there. And that's where after high school, went to college, and that's where I got exposed to a lot more of like different companies. I worked for Disney for a couple of years, and I started to realize that like there is more than showing up on a schedule or trying to pursue someone else's dream. I remember one of the videos that I saw at one point was kind of like, the more you're on social media, the more you're making them rich and not finding your own wealth. And that's what really connected with me. I'm just like, how can I pursue my own success and not make other people successful? And that's where I started this little tiny agency down in Bonita Springs. It was called Ninja Marketing. And that was mostly email marketing and business ops, coached some agencies through that, how to create their systems, how to create a lot of their automations for onboarding, all those things.
How long ago did you do the Ninja Marketing?
Ninja Marketing was like in 2015 to 2017, I want to say 2018.
Did you do a lot of Facebook ads?
Not at that point. I was really focused on like email marketing, and that's where I try to get a lot of clients through that.
I'm just trying to remember back. I remember seeing ads or seeing something about Ninja Marketing in the Bonita area. So,
yeah.
I do a lot of networking around Southwest Florida, and I ran across your stuff before then, so I didn't even realize
That's
that was
awesome.
you at that time. So
yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
Did your dad ever have you read Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yes, that was actually one of the very first books he gave me. Was that one? And The Alchemist was the other one that he gave me to like start off.
What was the other second one?
Alchemist, The Alchemist.
Okay. I haven't heard of that one, so I'll have to look that one up. Okay.
So with Ninja Marketing, I met my business partner now. His name is Kyle. We kind of made a fusion where we realized that he had what I was he had what I was missing, which was that paid ad side, that sales side. I had what he was missing, which was more of the operations and email marketing side, how to nurture clients and all those things. And that's kind of where we created that fusion. And that's where we now are called Kaizen. And the whole philosophy of Kaizen, the meaning of it is actually a Japanese philosophy. It means 1% growth in both self and also business. So that's how we look at everything: operations, fulfillment, our clients, our team. how can we continuously compoundingly grow 1% better, even if it's just every single day. And that's where Kaizen became a thing.
Nice. And you have how many employees now?
Right now we're at 29.
29. Okay. You guys have grown. And when did it actually launch and start off?
Kaizen officially kicked off. Its entity started in 2017, but it actually kicked off, I would say, 2020, 2021. So it was like post-COVID.
Oh, nice, nice. So you guys have had great growth over the last few
Yeah,
years
it's been
to
awesome.
really take off. That's great.
Appreciate
So
it.
again, back to kind of your childhood and when you got started, selling the sunglasses at school is a great idea. I sold bandanas. I'm a kid of the '80s, and so breakdancing was big, and so a lot of people wore bandanas.
I love that.
And I found a fabric store that had a whole roll of like these black and white checkered bandanas. So we cut them out and I sold them at school, and that's kind of one of my first gigs as well on getting out there. So
Yeah.
it's always looking for opportunities where other people aren't looking, and so I think that's great that you found. And sunglasses are a good one. You know, everybody wants a pair of sunglasses, and especially if you live in Florida, you
always need them.
they always need them. And people, you know, if they're buying a cheaper pair of sunglasses, they really don't care if they throw them in the car, and they're like, "Oh, I'll get another set." So that's good. So after sunglasses, you got into a little bit of the marketing side. So tell me about, like, how did you, as a young guy, really not having a lot of business connections, how did you kind of like develop that?
Into marketing?
Yeah.
A lot of it was through reading books. So I do want to attribute my dad with this. So he did give me a lot of books. There was Selling Machine was one. Launch was another book. And then it was more of like the personal development side. So Simon Sinek, the Start With Why, that's really where you start to learn a little bit of like your purpose. So I started to realize that if you go to chase money, you're never going to be successful. But if you go to chase a purpose, the money will just follow that. And that's kind of what I try to focus on is what is it that I'm trying to achieve in life, whether it be through God's work, whether it be through business or career. It's just what is the purpose? And at the end of the day, it's I want to empower people. And that's how it fuels a lot of what came into marketing, because I realized if I have a business, only time I'm going to get eyeballs on it is if I actually get some type of paid ads or some type of networking to go out there. So with Ninja Marketing, it was a lot of LinkedIn connections, a lot of cold DMs on Instagram, on Facebook, trying to get some type of conversation going. Because I realized that if people just sat with me and talked to me about what I know, I can show them value rather than just throwing spaghetti at a wall and hoping it actually sticks. And so it was just a lot of cannibalizing as much information as I could. I started to listen to a lot of podcasts, read a lot of books, watch a lot of YouTube videos. Remember Tai Lopez being one of those videos that I would watch, which that's where like that big flux of people that started opening a lot of marketing agencies came, was through Tai Lopez's, a lot of those like sales coachings that he did. And I started to realize that like there is more than what people are doing. And at the end of the day, it's just as long as you care about your client, as long as you treat them in the same way that it would be your business, at least in the marketing world, you're always going to be successful because you have that relationship with them. So that's the kind of the whole point of like, if you go to chase marketing or go to chase money in the sense of revenue, not going to be super successful. But if you go after a purpose of I'm here to help you, that's where the money will just follow through.
How old are you when you started Ninja Marketing?
Ninja Marketing, that was like fresh out of high school. So I want to say it was probably 17, 18. I graduated high school early. I did it in 3 years. I kind of got tired of like sitting in a desk. I wanted to do more. So I was ahead in science.
Welcome to the Biz Kidz Podcast, where young entrepreneurs rise, shine, and redefine what is possible. Ready to launch your business?
To do it.
Well, buckle up.
Cool.
We're about to launch.
Graduated early, went to college in Ave, did it for one semester. College just wasn't for me. I think college is great, but it just wasn't for me. Left after one semester, worked for Disney, and then that's where everything just took off.
So what were you doing for Disney? What was the job there?
I worked as a photographer for both ESPN and also Disney. I started out in just the parks, did a little photography there, and then eventually went into ESPN, did a lot of sports photography, met some pretty cool people there. And then it kind of just catapulted into doing the Run Disney stuff. So that's all their marathons, where at first it was just taking photos, being just one of the photographers for both East Coast and also West Coast. So they were flying me out to California for some time for some of the races out there. And then they saw kind of like my operation nerdy background, and that's where it became more of dealing with the operations of photography. I still do that now. I do it more seasonally, just kind of for fun, where I go in, try to piece together a little bit of like what photographers are we going to have where, what equipment they're going to be using, kind of organizing all of the operation sides to make it more efficient for every team. And that's where I just kind of nerd out when it comes to that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So one of the events that we have coming up, we're doing a Disney field trip for our students where
Oh,
they're going to
cool.
actually work with the Imagineers on how to design a theme park.
That's
So
excellent.
that one is we're excited about. It's going to be coming up in August, or excuse
Awesome.
me, November.
Okay.
So if you guys want to find out more about that, you definitely check out our website, bizkidsusa.org, and you can find out the details if you want your kids to go to the Disney park and learn from the Imagineers how to design a park. So, so as a young guy right out of high school and you're doing cold calls, well, you weren't actually doing cold calls. You were doing like messages on social media to try to get
Mhm.
people's attention. So what was your opening line to get people's attention?
I remember I actually did cold voice messages or voicemails. Remember something called lead carrier, I think is what it was back then. So it was just a quick, simple message, just like, "Hey, came across your website. Just some pointers that I saw that would hurt your conversion rates. If you're open to a conversation, just call me back." And then with messages through DM, it was more of like a nurture sequence where at first it was just like, "Hey, saw your brand. I think it's really cool. I appreciate everything that you're trying to do." And then after a few days, I would reach back out, be like, "Hey, I saw this and that." So I started to realize that if you went into conversations with a very diagnosis and prescription type of conversation, people would be more willing to have conversations with you rather than in the beginning be very sales and like pitchy. And that's kind of what I try not to really push people. It's just like, I'm just here to have a conversation. I can give you some pointers, give you some strategy. I'll give you the whole breakdown. If you want to do it yourself, cool. But I know you don't have time. So that's where I come in.
And I do a lot on LinkedIn, and I know that's how you and I kind of connected on
Hmm.
LinkedIn. It's just a message, hey, I reached out to you.
Hmm.
But what I hate about some of the contacts I get is they write probably a 5 or 6 paragraph
Yeah.
sales sheet that they send to me in a message. I'm like, do you really think that's going to grab my
No time.
attention? Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that you look at it as nurturing a relationship and trying to show them, hey, I can point out a few things that could help. And
Hmm.
then if you want to have a deeper conversation, we can. But instead of like just bombarding them with
Yes.
a 6-page sales sheet that I'm not going to read on my phone when I'm opening up my LinkedIn. So that's a great lesson to learn. Was it hard to, as a young person, to kind of establish yourself as an expert in this digital marketing world, where you get some of these older business owners that really don't like the digital, but they know they need to do
Mhm.
it? How did you deal with that?
That was difficult, not gonna lie, especially because I'm 28, but I do look like I'm like 18. So that's one of the things that was very difficult, especially sitting on meetings, walking into some of those offices of having those conversations and still establishing that level of credibility or just like assertiveness from other people. Like, okay, this kid knows what he might be talking about. I actually remember going to an interview for a marketing position. This was after I worked for a little agency down in Bonita before Ninja Marketing started. And I remember sitting on the interview, and the interviewee was like, "You seem like you know a lot, but you look like a kid that hasn't been given a chance." And I took that to heart because I was like, "Ouch!" But thank you. I don't really know what to say to that. And that's where it really started to shift my gears of like, I need to show people value before I ask anything when it comes to money, because of that kind of wall that I do have to break. Unfortunately, people do make first assumptions when they first meet anybody. Um, so it was difficult, and I think where I shifted that was, I'm just here to help you. Like, if at the end of the day you don't find this valuable, that's okay. But given the career that I was able to have, and give it all the different experiences that I was able to experience, it's just having that confidence of, if at the end of the day they don't find it valuable, they're not the ideal customer for me, and that's perfectly fine. And I think that's also where it kind of gave me a little bit more reassurance when it came to rejection, where people told me no. It wasn't they're saying no to me; they're saying no to my services, which is okay. It's nothing personal.
And I think that's a big lesson that we all need to learn is like how to take rejection when you're getting
Mhm,
out there for sales for the first time and you're talking to people and you're telling them all about your services and you think that you come up with the best idea and people say, "Oh, no, I'm not interested," or
mhm,
"No, I can do better myself." And that just kind of deflates you as a person, right? And like
mhm,
time after time after time, you have to be able to build up that resilience to go through it and pick yourself up and keep on going, because that I think is probably the number one thing that will kill an entrepreneur's
mhm,
spirit and get him out of business quicker than anything. If you can't take rejection and you can't take the no's, that's going to be the hardest thing.
mhm,
I was reading a book the other day. I can't even remember what it was. I because I listen to books on while I'm driving, but
mhm.
somebody was saying we don't sell. His dad taught him that you celebrate the no's for the day. So he was a door to door salesman type of guy, and he said at the end of the day, he made a goal of at least getting like 15 people to tell him no. And he came home and he celebrated that because he knew that that was going to be one step closer to that yes coming down the
Yep.
pike. Um, so your specialty is kind of in that email marketing
Mhm,
stage. So I know a lot of our students are kind of at the point where, hey, they're selling a product. They do have a lot of people, products that may kind of wear out or they need to be renewed. And so they're always looking for a way to stay in front of their clientele. So what's the basics of getting started? Like, how do I start an email list with my customers? And do I collect? I know when we're in the like department stores, everybody's trying to collect an email from us, and so I think everybody's kind of a little leery. Like, I don't know, I don't want to get on another list. I don't want to give my email. So how do you start?
Uh, Really, it's showing value. It just goes back into that. So with the email list, if you have a product, so it's more like that D2C, B2C type of experience, you do want to have some type of incentive. Doesn't have to be an offer. It could also be anything that you like. If you have exclusive products or if you have limited quantities, that is still a incentive. And from that lead capture, that's where it really makes a huge difference of what their journey is. And it really comes down to just nurturing. So from that welcome series, which is what we would call instead of email marketing, you get that initial offer out to them. That's more of the transactional. You gave me my email. Here's what I promised you. And then it goes into the brand story. What makes you different? Very similar to we have a lot of fast fashion athleisure brands in our company. And I always ask them, I'm like, why would I purchase from you versus going to Target or Walmart and getting something at a fraction of what your cost is? And that's where what we would call USPs or unique selling propositions. You show that to your customer, and that's where they start learning more about your products and what makes you different. Then you go into a little bit more of brand story. How did you start the business? Why did you start the business? What mission are you after? And that's where if you look at Toms, for example, Toms are not comfortable shoes. They're not the most stylish shoes, but people bought into that because of the story that they were backing. You buy a shoe, you give a shoe. And it's kind of the whole idea behind it is how can you portray your business to show that value or that impact, and then you'll have that raving fan. Usually if people don't buy from you, it's because of three things. They don't know enough about you, they don't know what enough about your products, or it's just too expensive. And so that way if you have that incentive, if you do that front end offer of the 20%, 30%, you don't have to destroy your margins. Usually what we try to explain to our clients is like look at your actual cost of the actual goods and then see what margins you have, and that's what you want to play with. So if you have like a 30%, 40% margin, maybe don't go past 20% because at that point you're going to start losing money. And the whole idea of it is how can I nurture my client to understand my brand better to then make that sale? And if you're not making that sale, then you look at that funnel of like how can I nurture them better or do different targeting as far as messaging on those emails to get them to actual purchase.
So do you try to have one big list or do you try to really segment your list so you know who your clients are, like what they like?
Mhm.
Or do you have kind of a strategy where you hit the whole mass at one time and then kind of dial it in from there? What's
It's
your advice?
definitely playing chess. So it's a little bit of doing mass sending, especially if you're doing like a big sale or a big announcement. But you do want to try to segment your list as much as possible. Obviously, if you start as you start getting more traffic, more engagement, you can segment further. But the big ones is you want to segment by collection or you want to segment by product type. You also want to segment by engagement type. So what we would call hyper engaged. These are people that have engaged with either your site or your emails in the last 30 to 45 days, right? Those people obviously want to hear more about you. So you might want to send more campaigns to them versus people that might be what we call sunset, which is like they're engaged, but they're starting to get to that churn level or eventually unsubscribe. You might not want to hit them up too often. So it really is playing chess of, if you look at a calendar board, it's how can I kind of trickle in a mass send at the beginning of the month to try to trigger people for the rest of the month. And then in between, where can I start targeting segmented lists versus unsegmented lists, or engaged versus unengaged, I should say. Now, one thing that we do try to do, and this is where like the whole chess game starts to come in, is there's a big thing called email deliverability, and that deliverability score determines if you're going to hit in people's inboxes or people's spam. Especially since April of last year, Yahoo, Outlook, Gmail, they started to really crack down when it came to branded domains. So the chances of you landing in spam are very high now. Now, if you play the game in the sense of, if you send 2 emails to a very engaged list where you know you're going to get a pretty good open rate, a pretty good click rate, email servers like that because they see that, okay, this domain is actually going to be a very engaged domain. And then you throw a little left field ball on the unengaged list. Now, that might not get a super big open rate and big click-through rate, but at an average throughout that week, because you had those 2 front-end ones where they were pretty engaged, overall, your average engagement is still really good. So that's kind of how we play those chess pieces of being super engaged and then throwing one in there, whether it's like a colder list, to get those people to reinvigorate with the brand, but you don't hurt the overall account where it can domino affect the whole revenue.
So what is the a good open rate percentage that they're looking at to say, hey, you did good?
Usually you want to stay at an open rate of between 25 to 30% and a click-through rate of about 1 to 1.75 is usually like the average, like this is healthy. Anything above that, you're really good.
Okay. So yeah, with Biz Kidz, I put out emails all the time to our families to let them know what's coming up next. And I was discouraged because I was only getting a 40% open rate.
Oh
So
no, that's good.
so that is good. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes me feel better. But I still get a lot of parents that are like, "Well, why didn't you tell me about this, the event that's coming up, and or that you're doing?" And I'm like, "I sent you guys an email. Like, you never opened my emails."
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my frustration is, how do I get them to open my emails? And then I also get a lot of people that say, "Oh, it went to my spam. I never even saw it." So
Yeah.
it's hard to tell.
Happens.
So I know this is like your business and you bring clients in, but for kids that are kind of just getting started and they just want to start building that list, what is a platform that you would recommend just to like kind of start playing with, kind of get familiar with it?
I would say a really good start is a platform called MailChimp. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have already heard of it. It's pretty simple, super easy to use. I don't think it's like the most robust email platform. It's not my preferred platform, but it is a really good start to understand a little bit of just the mechanics when it comes to segmentation, how to create automation flows, send out campaigns, do A/B tests or have 2 variation tests when it comes to subject lines. If you're looking for something a little bit more like driving a Ferrari in a school zone, that's where you started to look at Klaviyo. And that's where I preach Klaviyo all the way. And that's more for D2C brands. They're starting to go into more like lead gen type of companies. Klaviyo is where you can get really, really granular when it comes to segmentation, and you can create variables throughout the actual flow. So like, did they click? Did they not click? Did they engage? Did they not engage? And have different email segments through it. You don't want to create a spider web of emails. Try to keep it simple so that you have more tangible like metrics that you can make decisions off of. But that's what I would say. Start in MailChimp, super simple. It's a drag and drop designing tool. It's super easy to use, very fun. And then once you're looking to upgrade, that's where I'll start going into the more like Klaviyo, or if you're very lead gen, more B2B type of company, that's where I would usually recommend ActiveCampaign.
Okay. And yeah, it gets a little overwhelming sometimes because you're just starting a business. You have your product or your service that you're trying to sell, and now you're trying to learn how to do marketing, and you're trying to figure out this digital world. And there's so many different platforms out there that you're trying to advertise, and everybody has different rules. So it can get overwhelming at times, and especially since that's your specialty is kind of diving into that digital marketing, you need people to help you through that process.
Yes.
Because trying to figure this out, and you can literally, I've spent days working on email campaigns to try to get them all prepared the right way, where I wasn't able to do any of my other work because I was working on this email campaign. So you kind of have to take that into consideration, and that's where sometimes it's just better to hire somebody to take care of it in the beginning, or just take care of it so you can focus on what you know best, what you're doing, and keep the revenue coming in so you can pay for, your marketing services, and they'll pay for itself over the long term, right?
Yes, exactly.
So good. What advice would you give kids just to get out there and start, kind of like you did, like as a kid, selling sunglasses? What would you say to kids that have this idea, but they're scared to try it and get started?
Don't be afraid to fail. I feel like that's one of the things that I learned throughout my career is I actually liked whenever I landed in some type of roadblock or did fail, because I always learned from it. So it's there's a saying, and I'm starting to blank on it, but it's basically like, don't be afraid to fail, and from it just get up faster. Kind of the whole idea of it. So that's what I would say. It's just don't be, and the other thing is, don't be addicted to information and allergic to reaction. It's because I think a lot of people are just always taking in podcasts, books, seminars, webinars, all those things, and then nothing happens after that. So don't get that addiction of trying to learn more, but then there's nothing that comes out of it. So just take one thing. If you're just starting your business and you're wanting to market your business, look at one platform, learn it back and forth, know where those little like gamified gimmicks that you can do on tricking the algorithm on Facebook or on Instagram or on LinkedIn or on email, and become a craft in that, and then just duplicate that through the other platforms. But as long as you really focus on one lane, don't try to do it all. Those are the big things that I would mention.
So in your Disney experience, did you ever watch Meet the Robinsons?
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite Disney films that I think really identifies what you were just talking about. Is it's all about celebrating the failures, and the guy was a scientist, and that's they knew that that's how you come up to solve problems, is you have failure after failure after failure, and that gets you to where you want to be. And so that's what we teach our kids: celebrate the failures. Yes, it's disappointing, it can be heartbreaking, but you learn the most lessons from that. And if you learn how to, in the beginning, that, hey, this is the part of the process, it's not going to pull you down. You're going to be like, yes, I had a failure today, I'm moving forward, now I learned something different, new, and you can keep on going on. So
yeah, success is not linear, so it's always dips and valleys. It's just what it is.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being with us here today. We appreciate taking the time. We definitely, I think we want to bring you back and talk a little bit more in detail about this digital marketing side, because I think our students could really utilize that. If you want to get your kids involved with Biz Kidz, we have an online training program that helps them get connected by hearing the podcast. Is a great way to just hear some of the stories that are out there, what people are doing. But you can find us at bizkidsusa.org, and you can find more information about us and get involved and join our community of young entrepreneurs. We're here to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs. So thanks, Santi, for being here, and we will see you guys next time on the Biz Kidz Podcast.